This is how I made 370 units betting on UFC and became one of the top MMA cappers of 2025. In this video, I'm going to go over all of my betting history, my big wins, my big losses, why I bet on UFC, what the softest sports books, in my opinion, were for UFC, my betting strategies, including live betting strategies, all of my lessons learned, and what my future outlook for 2026 and beyond are. So, this video is just meant to be an open and honest recap of 2025, what worked, what didn't work, sort of a self reflection. And if I can pass on any knowledge into the betting world, then all the best to me. So, if you guys don't know, my name is Artsy. I'm the lead betting analyst for Fighting Stats. At Fighting Stats, we have exclusive UFC stats not available anywhere else. We track how the fighters throw their jabs, what stance they're in, how many times they kick in a fight when they're on the ground, whether or not the fighter prefers to ground and pound for a half guard or move into mount and look for a submission. So we have all of that data here. It really gives us a huge edge over the sports books, and the results speak for themselves. So let's get started. I'll go through all of the betting recap, and then we'll tell you what worked and what didn't work. All right, well, to start 2025, we started with a $50,000 bankroll. 1% of that bankroll is $500, so we kept our units at $500 throughout the year. You can see here our total bankroll, we ended up at 234,000. Total wins for the year, 716 wins, 989 losses. Our over 2025 profit, not including live bet, was just under $185,000 or 369 units. You can see for the year we wagered over $750,000 on UFC, and that's throughout the year, for a total ROI of just under 26%, ROI being return on investment. You can see here that we posted everything that we play. Everything is posted over to patreon.com/fightingstats. When we post over there, we also post here into our tracker. We have every event, we have every bet posted. We track what the event is, what the book is that we betted at, what the actual bet was, the type of bet, so straight bets, parlays. We give you the odds, the implied probability based on those odds, and then the overall wagers, how much they win, and then the overall profit, and then the running profit here. So we track everything here. We track them by event here as well. You can see per event what the win-loss record is, the profit for the event is, the units profit, and the ROI. All of that is tracked. And then because we track it in terms of the bet types, here are our results for 2025 in terms of bet types. So straight bets, we were 97 wins, 79 losses, average bet size of $676, and an overall profit of $3,000. Return on investment, ROI, about 2.3%. Moving over to props. Props is our biggest market that we play a lot. 219 wins, 331 losses, 668 prop bets in total, and you can see an average bet size of 339 bets. Again, our unit size is 500, so just about 0.6 units. Return on investment 7% for prop bets. Total profit $16,000. Now, parlays, moving over to parlays, these are short parlays, big favorites together, nothing long shots. So we were 98 wins, 70 losses, average bet size about $454, so about one unit. ROI 7.4% and $6,000 profit. Same game parlays, we were at 93% ROI. We made about $50,000 profit from same game parlays. Same thing with long shot parlays. We were all long shots for a reason. We won 27 long shots. We lost 197 long shots. Total profit of $23,000 though, and an ROI of 54%. And then moving over into takedowns and significant strikes, 51% ROI, total profit of $85,000 from takedowns and significant strike profit. And again, all of that's tracked here by units. You can see here the average event. So winning events, we had 30 winning events, 21 losing events. Average profit per event about $3,500, so 7 units of profit per event. ROI about 2.3% each event. Now this is interesting here. We have over 1,700 bets for 2025, and the average bet size is less than a unit, so 0.6 units is our average bet size. And here you can see the percentage of the bets that we made that were greater than 1 unit were 17.8%. So 82% of our bets that we made this year were a unit or less. We tried to really focus to stay to a unit. We rarely went over 3 to 4 units. That was our biggest bet size, I think. We never go to 10-unit bombs or 20-unit whale plays. We kept it consistent to 1 unit to 2 units, most of the times up to 3 and 4 if we really felt good about something. So those were the events for the year. Pretty good wins. Our biggest win was in the same game parlay field. It was the Ian Gary Carlos Prates same game parlay. We won about $22,000 in that one with the tied knockdowns going to decision. Everybody thought that Carlos Prates would win by KO pretty early, but we hit a nice same game parlay there. And then we hit a nice significant strikes parlay with Esteban Ribovics and Silva and Vallejos. Won about $20,000 with that one there. We hit a nice significant strike ladder with Cody Brundage and Haider Emil at $9,000. And more recently with Peter Yan versus Merab Dvalishvili, we had a prop bet on FanDuel. Peter Yan to land 15 significant strikes in each round. We made about $9,000 in that fight. So those were our biggest wins. Our biggest losses, we kept pretty low. The biggest losses for me was Taliesin Teixeira to land most significant strikes. He fought Derek Lewis. Derek Lewis, not really a volume guy. Taliesin Teixeira has a lot of volume. I thought that he would land more significant strikes, but Derek Lewis landed early, got him out of there within the first 20 seconds or so, ended up losing that bet. And then last week or the week before, we loaded up on Morgan Charrier. We had a chance to make 400 units for the year, and we didn't get it. We needed 12 units to get there, so we put 12 units on Morgan Charrier. Again, he got head kicked in the first round, very hard to cap. We thought that he would survive, ended up losing 12 units. So those were our two biggest losses for the year, combined with our biggest wins of the year. Now, I wanted to talk to you about my betting style, right? So, one of the biggest things for me betting is that for the year, we really only focused and specialized in UFC bet. We rarely or went over to NFL, any college bets. I really focused on UFC, thinking that there was a lot of time and effort put into UFC. Go into the other bet, other lines. I commend anybody else that can bet those other sports, but there's a lot of work going into just monitoring rosters, injury reports, weather, things like that. So it's hard to do both. Pick a sport that you like, specialize in it. If it's women's ping pong, that's fine. But as long as you become an expert in it, all you have to do is be better than the guy at the sportsbook setting the line, and you can beat them long term there. I myself have a pretty unique betting style, right? I talked about how many bets I made, over 1,700 different bets in 2025. I'm a bit more of a volume player. I try to find any kind of line that I feel has value, and I bet that value side. That's why, again, I have more losses than wins. It's because I'm playing more of the higher prop lines, plus 300, plus 400, right? If you go over to our prop line here, you just see the average bet size. You can see some of the average bet lines that we have. They're well over plus 200, plus 300, especially for some of these props there. So on average, we had about 27 units per event. So that's pretty big. Some other people like to keep it lower, find the money lines that they like. But again, I will look at any prop bets. I will look at any lines across any sports books and find what I feel that has the most value to me and play them as long as I can get the money down. So, like I said, I have mostly prop bets as the bet types that we make. I find that some of the prop bets are a little bit safer than the money line plays. Sometimes the money lines can be easy. You see one guy on a 5-fight win streak, one guy on back-to-back losses, and it's easy to take the guy on the win streak. But it's all about the matchups and the recency bias and all that stuff. So I do think that prop bets are more valuable. Some of the books really have to provide lines on every single line and every single aspect of the fight. And it's our job as cappers just to find the ones that I feel that are off and play the off lines there. So more recently in 2025, they also released these takedowns and significant strike lines. When they first came out, they were very inefficient, and some of our bigger wins came from those takedowns and strike lines there. I do see that they have made some adjustments, and we'll get into them in terms of adjustments and things that have changed in 2025. But those ones, again, are pretty soft, but they can get your accounts limited pretty quickly as well. The other part I wanted to say about the betting style is that don't be afraid to bet on both fighters in the same fight. So again, I have a lot of volume and I sort of understand how the fight might play out. So it's okay to play one guy early in round one and then another guy later. If one guy doesn't get him out of there early into round one, then he really fades into rounds two and three. It's okay to play fighter B to win in rounds two and three because you cover yourself, you cover both sides, and you're not really guaranteeing profit, but you're covering the most likely outcomes of a fight and where you can make profit on either side of those. So we'll go into him a little bit deeper in terms of that betting strategies, but that's don't be afraid to just take one fighter. You can take both fighters. You can also incorporate live betting strategies, which I'll touch on in a bit. A lot of people ask me, why do I bet on UFC? Now, I find that the UFC betting markets are a little bit more inefficient. If you think about the bigger markets, the NFL, the NBA, MLB, those sportsbooks have stats on everything. How fast the ball spins, time in the pocket, pressure rate, one-on-one matchups. They have stats on everything. They know how they work. Most times you're like 16 and a half point spread, and then you're like, no ways, that's off, and then the game ends at 16. How many times has that happened? I find that the sports books are very efficient. It's very hard to beat those markets long term. Yes, you can win big, but long term it's very hard to beat. Whereas UFC, I think it's still relatively newer. What I find is that go into those betting markets, you try to scroll to UFC and you have to go over and over. You have to go to all sports, find UFC and MMA. It's very smaller betting market, so there is some efficiencies here to beat the books. So I like betting on UFC. And the other thing is it's one-on-one, right? And you can study a person, what their tendencies are, what they want to do. Whereas a game like football, there's 12, 13 guys on each team, you know, on each side on the field at one time. I think 11 guys, but each of those matchups have one-on-one matchups. Each person can be a disruptor. Different fumbles, different things happen in the game, so there's more randomness, I find. You would think fighting, there's a lot of randomness, but at the high level that we're watching, these guys are very defensively sound. They have very good strengths. So some of these guys can really take a punch. So you can really iron out how the fight is going to play out. Obviously, there's going to be some variance. There's going to be some randomness involved. Random head kicks, spinning back elbows, disqualification because of bites. Those stuff are always going to be baked into it. But as long as you have a good understanding of how the fight might play out, it's definitely markets that you can beat. And again, we have these stats that really make a difference to me. I find that it's not just stats based. We have a lot of the UFC stats that nobody else has. It gives us a huge edge over the sports books. And I pair that with my 20 years of betting experience, 20 years of watching and betting on UFC. I sort of know what to look for, what the fighters' tendencies are. That really helps me find those prop markets that are off. And I find that with the UFC becoming more and more popular, I find the betting market seems to be really recency bias. There's a lot of recency bias in terms of these guys, big win streak, hasn't lost, versus this guy that had lost a couple of times by knockout. I'm going to take fighter A by knockout. It's not that easy, right? It's fight styles. It's always the different matchup. And again, if you can pick those spots, you can definitely make some profit on them long term. So let's move over to the softest sports books. I get this question a lot of times. What books do you play? Again, my strategy is to play any markets that I find that has value. So different sports books have different markets available. Different books have different odds available. So you always have to sort of look around. If you see here, my biggest wins and this year were from DraftKings. I feel like DraftKings not only provides a lot more betting markets available, so you can eye on specific lines. They have round one only bets. They have submission only bets. They have takedowns, significant strike bets. They have a lot of betting markets available for UFC, and I find that it's easier to pick off those markets here and there. So I made $123,000 this year betting on DraftKings. Over at FanDuel, I thought that FanDuel was pretty good. Their markets for longer shot props are tend to be the best in the market. If everybody's offering plus 600 on wins by submission, FanDuel might offer plus 800 or something. And they also offer a lot of these round two, round three type props where I like to try to play because some fighters, their cardio sort of dips out after the first round. So betting on another fighter to win in round two, round three can be pretty profitable. Again, those are long shots though. Bet Rivers is also pretty good. They offer a ton of markets now. They're inside the distance only line, decision only lines. They are offering some significant strike props. I find that throughout the year they have pulled back some of those lines, and only for the more recent pay-per-views were they starting to offer the lines on the main cards. But they are pretty quick to limit you as well. So keep that in mind, especially if you play those softer markets. With Bet Online is usually the first to market, so they're usually the first ones to offer the lines, first ones to offer the props, and then I find some of the major books, the DraftKings, FanDuel's, just mirror the Bet Online markets because Bet Online is offshore. They set the lines, they set their limits very low, so they'll open up a fight or they'll open up props, and the most you can win on a bet is maybe $100 or $250. They let the bets come in, and then they move the lines based on the money coming in. And then once it settles, the main books are more confident with opening up the lines based on there. So it's a balance between hitting the opening line for $100 to 250, or waiting until those limits open up more and then hitting them there, or waiting for the offshore or the main books to open up their lines before you hit them there, and not moving the Bet Online lines because you Bet Online is mirroring, or a lot of the major books are mirroring the Bet Online books. Bet365 continues to be one of the softer books there as well, but they are instant limit. As soon as you win a little bit of money, or as soon as you hit these offshore or softer markets, on the Tuesday morning, you're going to get an email saying that trading team has reviewed your account and you've been banned. So multiple 65 accounts, but again, they are pretty soft. We made $17,000 on Bet365. Pinnacle is one of the best, sharpest books there. They don't limit you, but they do limit the amount of money that you can get down. The only problem is that they really only offer money lines or totals, not really a big prop bet market there. So if you want like props, you find it elsewhere. But Pinnacle doesn't really limit you. I just recently got my Pinnacle account back up, so you can see back based on this, we only lost about $300, and that's because later in the year we were struggling to find accounts. Opened up my Pinnacle account again. BetMGM is also decently good with prop bets or different markets. I find their lines are a little bit worse though for betting lines, money lines, things like that. But they are offering more prop bets, and live betting. They're offering prop bets during the fight, so there's good live betting opportunities. It's hard with MGM because that thing spins and spins. Hard to get bets in live betting. And then I also bet some a little bit on sport interaction, but that for me was really just exact methods. Walter Walker heel hooks, I would play that there. So that would be generally a book that the only book that I can get down at. I took a little bit of bigger shots on some of those markets, ended up losing 400 over for the year. So those are the books that I will generally look for. DraftKings will be favorable, so I've gone through multiple DraftKings accounts throughout the year. So that's something to keep an eye out. But I would recommend DraftKings and FanDuel if those are available. Bet365, if you don't have those access to those, Bet Online will have a lot of props available and a lot of first to market type bets. Let's move into our betting strategies. So again, we have exclusive UFC stats. We know again what stances fighters are in. Some fighters really struggle against southpaws. Some can only throw certain strikes while moving backwards. Some, when they're on the ground, prefer to be in half guard versus side control versus mount. We have all of that information, and again, I pair that with the tape study that really gives us a huge edge, right? And I don't limit to the stats. We do the tape study. We get a feel of what we're trying to do. I get a clear picture of how the fight's going to go. You get an idea of what fighter A wants to do, how they can win, what fighter B wants to do, how they will win as well, and if fighter A loses, what that looks like, right? There is some built-in variance, obviously. You're not going to get it to a T every single time, but your game plan for fighter A is to get the fight down to the ground, get him on the ground, and control him. Now, for fighter B, can he defend the takedowns, or if he does get taken down, can he get back up, right? So that's some of the stuff that we look for in the tape that doesn't really show up with the stats that you can set an eye. Is he doing the right thing? Is he pummeling for the underhook? Is he defending? Or is he going for a guillotine and jumping guard sort of thing? So that sort of stuff jumps up on tape. And once you get an idea of how the fight's going to go, it's what I like to do is before I look at any of the odds, I do my tape study, I look at the stats, I get an idea of how the fight's going to go, and then I break down the fight. And I'll show you here, for example, here's our Islam versus JDM fight. I break it down here. So I put Islam here on the blue side. We put JDM here on the red side. And I break it down. Islam to win by TKO, I give it a percentage out of 100, right? Islam to win by submission, I give it a percentage. And Islam to win by decision, I give it a percentage, right? And then I go over to the JDM side as well. JDM to win by KO is definitely possible. He has good hands, wins by submission. He's very rarely submitting Islam Makhachev by submission and then wins by decision. I do this before the lines come out. You add those up, you get to a total money line, all right? And the money line, the percentage, a money line or the odds basically translates to a percentage here. So I said Islam probably about 65 to 70%, minus 186 to minus 200 there, right? And it sort of gives you an idea of where the line should be. On the JDM side, I said, it should be 186, and the line was plus 200. So it gave me a line of where I thought that JDM, the value lies. Once the prop bets are released, or if the prop bets are out, then I come out and I fill in the current odds. So I said that Islam to win by KO would be plus 900 or better. The sportsbooks were only giving us plus 600 or better. So I'm not going to play that because I think I needed plus 900 or better, right? Out of all of the outcomes here, I said that Islam to win by decision was the most likely outcome. I said that I would probably play it at plus 233 or better. The line was plus 230, so almost exactly of where we thought it would be. But again, the value there is not there, but it's the most likely outcome. So it's the decision to choose whether or not there's value or just play the most likely outcome. But if you do it this way, you can see here that you'll get a total money line. The wins inside the distance is just going to be the TKO versus submission line, right? The goes to decision is going to be the both fighters to win inside the distance versus not goes to decision. And it spits out the probability of each of those lines based on your confident level or your capping of how the fight's going to go. And then from there, you really get all of the lines. So you get all the inside the distance only lines, the decision only lines, the submission only lines. All of these lines are available to you. And then if you use a Kelly criterion or some sort of betting calculator, it can determine how much value a bet has. So for example, we said that JDM should be plus 186. He opened at plus 200. There's 0.3% of value on taking JDM on the money line if you wanted to take a shot there. But again, this is the way if you look at it and you try to not look at the odds, you get an idea of where the line should be. It's a really good way of identifying the prop bets that are really off and what markets that are really efficient, things like that. So for example, goes to decision we said was 45% plus 122. They were offering plus 134. It said Kelly Criterion said risk about zero point 0.5 units. So if you do this strategy, you find those prop bets and value in those bets there. The other thing I want to talk about is going back to our betting strategies here, right? Again, we didn't go really hard. We never really went 3 units or 4 units on a bet, or fail play. It's easier to sort of those prop bets, more volume long term. Never chase any losses. If you're down in an event, I went back and tried to get that money back, right? So with the year strong with profits early on with years, right? And then you take a hit, right? So you might have a week where you lose 2,800, 5.6 units. You come back the next week, you lose again. You're not chasing it back the second week. Ability, and you have to be confident in yourself that you're going to get that units back. So stay to the formula, stay to the way. You see, I didn't go any harder on that after you lose. You might go on a losing streak. It happens to the best of us. Don't try to chase it. Stick to the formula that good there, right? Once on live betting. So these are the pre-fight bets. These are not including any of our live betting. If we go over to live betting, this is our live betting chart. Overall, 259 wins, 195 losses for a total profit of $63,000, 127 units from live betting. That's not included in the 369 units that we made pre-fight. So we had an ROI of 31%. This is our live betting graph here. It is consistently up. This is what you're looking for. No big wins, no big real losses, consistency, and it happens. So what we find is that, tape study, you get an idea of what the game plan is, what fighter A needs to do. And when you're watching it, you can sort of see, is fighter A getting off the game plan that he really wants to do? Can he get the fight down to the ground? He's attacked 2 takedowns. No, he can't get it. He was deep on the hips. He should have been able to get that takedown, but fighter B defended it. I'm going to start to lean and bet on fighter B because fighter B is getting the game plan that he wants to get off. He's fighting the style that he wants to do, and fighter A sort of fades. So if you have that information, it's a lot easier to live bet knowing that type of style. And again, obviously, refereeing and the judging, sometimes you're never going to go that way. In the tail end of 2025, there's some weird stuff that happened within fights, but that's just variance that happens all the time. But in the end, if you know what happens in the fight, it's a little bit easier to live bet. And if you combine pre-fight betting with live betting, it's also a different strategy. For example, if you know that fighter A comes out strong, he's very hot in round one, you could play him to win in round one or round one only on DraftKings, and then choose to live bet him live bet fighter B after round one into rounds two. You're going to get a better price because fighter one A is going to probably win round one at a very high clip, but lose rounds three at a very high clip as well. So there are live betting ways of betting one side and then knowing that you're going to bet the other side live betting, but you have to be available to watch it and you have to be part of that. But there are strategies involved where you're, fighter pre-flop and then taking another fight live. You're guaranteeing profit on both sides. Do not be afraid to bet both fighters. It's not a cop out. It's a way of guaranteeing money. In the end of the day, it's about making money and about building the bankroll. And if you can do that, betting live, then by all means do it. So, um, let's go over to our lessons learned, right? Okay, so the biggest lessons learned and that you need to know, especially when you're betting on it, is that the sports books are not your friends. Okay, they might offer you some free bets, but the sports books spend millions and millions of dollars on talent acquisition. They are studying, what they're looking for. They're giving free bets after week one NFL after you make some money because they know they're going to get it right back in two and three as you start chasing, involved behind it, right? There's a reason why there's a big difference between one-way markets and two-way markets. So, for example, you log into DraftKings, FanDuel, whatever. What do you see on the front page? Oh, 373 people like this parlay. Fighter one, fighter two, fighter three, fighter four. Oh, look at this method that we're boosting. We're gonna boost, to win by TKO. It used to be plus 130. We're giving you plus 150, right? So it doesn't take much to go from plus 150 to plus 130 to 150, and now they're boosting it. You think the sports books are trying to give you free money to say, hey, come in, we're going to give you the line that we think is going to win, and we're going to give you even better juice on it? No, they're trying to incentivize you to say, take this fighter, take these ways, look at all these parlays that other people are playing. Don't you want to play them? There's a reason why they're on the front page. Now, the second thing that they do is one-way markets versus two-way markets. This is very important to know because it's across all sports as well. One-way markets are ways that you can only bet on overs. So you'll see it in football, basketball, all that stuff. You'll see yards, 20 plus, 30 plus, 40 plus, 50 plus, but where are the unders? There are no unders. You can't bet under 20 yards, 30 yards. Same thing with significant strikes or things like that, or takedowns. You'll say one takedown, two takedowns, three takedowns, but where's under one takedown? They don't offer that market because they know that those markets are inefficient. So they will offer a lot of one-way markets, and when they only offer overs, they can set the lines to whatever they want. If you want to take one takedown, they can set it minus 200. What are you going to do? Not play it or play it? So sometimes people will think that, oh, there's a takedown line. I'm just going to add it to my same game parlay. I'm just going to build it. But most of the times, because the one-way markets don't offer a ton of value, I try to stay away from those markets now. A lot of money from same game parlays when they did offer two-way markets, but because we hit them so often or we hit them so hard with that, they really started eliminating the two-way markets and only offered one-way markets. So even like FanDuel is one of the worst for significant strike totals. They'll only offer over unders anywhere. So if you see one-way markets, try to stay away from them. They can be profitable, but you have to know what you're looking for and where the line is. Generally, though, one-way markets are inefficient and they're really only sucker bets. So I won't even look at same-game parlays most of the times because if they're only one-way lines, because I know I'm not getting the value that I want to get in order to place a bet. The other thing I really noticed with the lessons learned here is that, about the betting MMA lines and stuff. What we talked about how they're on the second page, or you go to all sports to find UFC. I find that the betting market for UFC is a lot smaller than I originally thought of. Not a lot of people are betting on UFC. You go to casinos, you talk to people. What do you play UFC? They don't. One, a lot of people don't watch UFC, and two, if they watch it, a lot of people don't bet on it, and three, if they do bet on it, they're betting to $5, $10. They're trying to get into the fight there. There's not a lot of serious gamblers that bet on UFC, so it didn't take much. A $500 bet, $1,000 bet for some of these smaller prop lines were moving the lines in front of me as I was placing them. The bets are moving. They're pretty small. I'm hoping that as the market grows with this move to Paramount Plus, that those markets grow a little bit and they can take more action. But it didn't take much for these markets to move, especially when you hit them in the opener. So again, there is a balance between waiting fight time and betting it, or waiting and taking the inefficient line into getting what you can in and moving it. Just be aware that if you're not the one moving it, there's somebody else there that will move it as well. You're the only sharp better that is playing it. If it's off for you, it's going to be off for them, and they're going to hit it as well. So it can be a race. I don't like to race and try to get the opening lines too much because the tail, especially some of the opening lines. But again, you're trying to get the most money down at the best line you can down, so it's a little bit of a balance of when you can get that down. So the other thing that I really wanted to say is that lessons learned is because UFC is growing, a lot more books are opening it up. You have to line shop. Okay, you have all of the different sports books that we have here that are available. Sometimes that cents, 10 cents, those really add up into the long run. So you have to line shop, you have to find the best line available. Even going to betting exchanges, different offshore books, local bookies, anything that offers a better line, I will try to find it and take it because I know 5, 10% up, especially at the $1,000 units, $2,000 units. That 10% now is not just pennies, it's $100, and it really adds up. So make sure you take the time to line shop because it will make a big difference at the end of the year when you're getting the best line and the sports books aren't keeping their own money there, right? So um, the last thing that I wanted to tell you, and big lessons learned for me is that the sports books will offer some lines that are off, and look at it. The same game parlay looks off. We'll talk about it. I'll send a message to my buddy. Hey, what do you think the line on this should be? And we talk about it. We think, oh, it should be about plus 1,000. Okay, great. And then we look at the line, it's plus 5,000. So we're getting, fun where we should be getting 10 to 1. Do not be afraid to smash those lines. Those lines do not come around too often. You get a handful of them. Offhand, I can maybe remember 3, 4, 5 lines this year that were completely off that you smash. You either bet, for example, something's 50 to 1 and you're, 50 to 1, it's a long shot. Let me just put $10 on it. I'm going to win a unit. How easy is it for us to win a unit? We made 369 units this year. Why are we wasting a bet on a plus, fun when it should be 10 to 1 and we're only winning a unit? If that's going to hit, I want it to hit for a lot. So I will either risk a full unit, even 2 units, because I know later on that next week or even the bet after that, I'm going to get that 2 units back. So do not be afraid to take your shots because you know what? These sports books will limit you as soon as they can. So are you going to get limited after winning $2,000 or are you going to get limited after winning $100,000? If you're gonna limit me after 100,000, I'm fine. That will make it work. But you hit them hard, hit them fast, and try to make the most out of it when you can. That's my biggest recommendation to you, is that if you do find something that's off, just hit it. You'll get it back later on. Don't worry about it. All right. So yeah, recapping 2025, I had some great experiences, some big wins for 2025. We're obviously going to try to replicate that for 2026. I am aware and I am cognizant that 2025 was an outlier, just an insane run. Not really, is obviously to repeat 2025, but I know it's probably not going to happen, especially with these sports books changing the way that they or the markets that they bet. So for 2026, I'm going to start out. I'm going to try to roll around 100 units or so. But biggest thing that I wanted to tell you guys is that for 2025, we made an absurd amount of money. We grew our bankroll to $234,000. I'm taking that money, doing this, you have to think about why we're doing this. Obviously, it's to make money, but what is that money for? For me, I'm investing in my future and my family. So I'm going to be spending that bankroll here. We're going to reset. We're going to bring that bankroll all the way back down to $20,000. My unit size is going to start out 26 at $200 units, and we're starting all over again. So you can join us. Everything's over at patreon.com/fightingstats. Again, I'm starting with a $200 unit, but the difference is in 2026 is that we are going to use dynamic units. So as our units increase or as our bankroll increases, so say for example, as we start to win and now our $20,000 bankroll has gone up to $30,000, that unit will always consistently be 1% of our bankroll. So instead of $200 units, it will go up to $300 units if we are at $30,000, right? So as we continue to win in 2026, our might grow exponentially because our unit size is also growing. For example, here at the end here, if our bankroll was $234,000, our unit size at the end of the year would be over $2,000 unit size, right? So $2,300 per unit, and then it's just going to grow and right. So you get an idea of how that's going to work. But again, without we're bankroll, we're starting over. We're going to be using Kelly Criterion calculator, right? We're going to use this formula here. When I find that there's value, it's going to tell us what to bet, right? So for example, Just give you a quick rundown. If the American odds are plus 150, and we think that it should be 50%, right? We think that it should be plus 100, and the current line is plus 150. This complicated formula here, we'll do the math here. It'll tell us full will tell us 17%. We were using eighth Kelly, so 2.1%. We're going to go to fourth Kelly. I know this can be pretty confusing, but it's basically a mathematical formula based on the current odds of plus 150. We think it should be plus 100, and fourth Kelly criterion is telling us to bet 4.2 units on this type of bet. So we'll use this formula a lot going in 2026. Help us determine how much of our bankroll to put on each bet. Also, it builds in some confidence levels there as well, but we'll be smart about it and we'll gain some money. So that's what you can expect for 2026. Our bankroll will track. Again, we track everything here. Patreon.com/FightingStats. We're going to continue to attack any market that has value, any books that offer offlines. I'm going to try to do more social media presence, but there's a balance. I don't have a lot of time throughout the week, so it's a balance between tape studying, finding bets, and doing a lot of the social media stuff. So again, the goal for 2026, we're going to say maybe 100 units, see if we can get there, another great year. We're going to go to live betting. We might press some live betting because, again, the success that we've had from live betting in 2025, even 2024, live betting is just continues to be up. We can see that there's markets or value there. So we might press some live betting action there. So I hope it helps. That's everything that we learned in 2025. That's the big journey that we had. Feel free to follow me on Twitter. I'm at Mr. Electrocute on Twitter, or you can follow us at Fighting Stats, all available social media outlets there as well. As always, my name is Art C. Find me at patreon.com/fightingstats. Again, you can join us for free. Free members, I do live tape study sessions. So as I'm watching tape, I turn on the camera. We can watch tape together. We can talk about the tendencies that we find. That's free to our members. And then during the UFC events, we do live betting tape studies where I tell you what to bet, what I'm looking for, when to bet it. That's a big edge for our members there. And obviously, you get all these breakdowns, our best bets throughout the week there as well. So join me into 2026 run. Just going to have another stellar year. So all the best. Thanks for watching.